Welcome back to the Bob Harden Show. And now here's your host, Bob Harden.
Thanks so much for joining us here on the show. It's brought to you in part by Gulf Shore Playhouse, bringing you professional New York-style theater at its very best. I served as board chairman for 15 years and so proud of the progress we've made. Just great productions. You can get tickets at gulfshoreplayhouse.org. Coming up, we're going to visit with Jim McTagg. He's an author and former Barron's Washington bureau chief. Right now we have with us Crystal Kinzel. She is the Collier Clerk of the Circuit Court and Comptroller of Collier County. Crystal, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bob, for having us.
Oh, my pleasure indeed. Well, I'm really pleased to have this conversation because many of us aren't aware of what happens at the Clerk of Courts, what your role you play in the county. Maybe you could tell us about it.
Well, thank you. I have recognized that as I was just most recently campaigning. A lot of people aren't aware of the many, many services of our office, and the reason we exist is totally for the taxpayer. So it's important to get in outreach programs like yours, so I can explain it. The Clerk of Courts has three primary roles. We are clerk to the courts, and that involves all the record keeping, processing, collecting fines and fees. We handle the processing of very important things like domestic violence, injunctions. We will help individuals process paperwork. We have a self-help center that we've just created in the last year where individuals can do minor court processes, small family claims, tenant and landlord issues, some civil, but uncomplicated items that they can come to our office and work through those themselves without having to hire an attorney.
Wow.
So we think that provides a lot of service for the taxpayers. The courts, we also handle the in-court collection of the jury. Many people will get a notice from us saying you have jury duty. Right now, those are on hold until about October because of COVID. So we've had to really change up our operations, but we have continued to be in business through e-filing and e-recording. Mm-hmm. And that brings me to the second phase. We are the keeper of all of your official records, things like your deeds, your marriage licenses. And you may have heard on TV or radio previously that there is a lot of fraud going on with deeds and those records. So in the last 2 years, we have created a public service where the community can register on our website at collierclerk.com and put their information that we have on record in Collier County. They can identify that, and if a transaction occurs using their name or those instruments, we will email them and say, hey, we've received something in your name. Is this legitimate? And then they have an opportunity to go right then and make sure the record and the recording is legitimate. Yeah. So we're responsible for that. And again, we have e-recording, which makes it a remote and automated process, but we are still available. We also perform marriages. And we are one of the we are the only actually in Collier County, assistance for passport issuance. Now, we don't issue the passports, but we will facilitate the records and help you get those to the proper official so that you can get a passport.
Well, that's just a lot of interesting information there, Crystal. Just one question I have.
Sure.
One of the things I'm concerned about is you see these advertisements saying somebody's going to steal your deed of your home and you find out you don't own your home. Is that really possible?
Well, actually, yes, it is. It's not as easy, I don't believe, as maybe they advertise, but recording your information, and particularly in Florida, is all public record. So if you are not checking on the validity of your documents, and they could be falsified, things could be re-recorded falsely. Wow. And so there is that opportunity. But I please, all of your listeners, you do not need to pay $99 or $109. You can get notified regarding your records in Collier County free at our website. That's
a great service. So we go to collierclerk.gov.com.
Very simple, collierclerk.com.
All right, and how do you navigate? You just try and do a search on your name, or?
Yes. In other words, we will have, if you go to our website, on the right-hand side, it'll talk about the fraud or risk alert. You can then click on that, and it will walk you through how to register for that process. And it's free of charge.
That sounds terrific. I never knew that, Krista. Very helpful. The other thing I'd like to ask you, if you have a dispute with someone, apparently you're making it easy to resolve minor disputes that require some sort of legal action without an attorney. Now, how do you do that?
Okay. First of all, I would recommend everyone. We have worked to make our website very robust. Mm-hmm. So collierclerk.com can walk them through almost any process. And we have large buttons. They're easily identifiable to each of those processes. And as always, they can call our office, and we'll be glad to guide them through the website, or we'll be glad to walk them through the forms. But we do have also an on-site processing center that they can come, see the forms, get copies of forms, or work online from our office, and that way we can help them navigate.
All right.
So they have an opportunity in multiple ways.
Yeah, so one of the things I want to do is, after the show, is go to colliergov.com and...
collierclerk.com.
Collierclerk.com and check out the services. I wasn't even aware of this. This is interesting. I want to ask you also, your former Clerk of Courts, Dwight Brock, had to dust up with the Collier County Commissioners. It was usually involving, I think, money being spent. Can you comment on that?
Right. Well, there's the third role of the Clerk of Courts. We are your Comptroller and custodian of all the county funds, mm-hmm. and auditor of the Board of County Commissioners. So many of those conflicts arose out of our audit function. We are the watchdog for the taxpayer. While we work with the commissioners, and I'm glad to report no litigation pending.
Great.
We're working regularly with county staff and vendors, but there are situations where we are watching out one and only for the taxpayers. And that's my role as clerk, and we work on behalf of the citizens. We audit. We make sure the payments are legal. Now, we don't set policy. The Board of County Commissioners set that policy and determine how the money is being spent, and we just make sure that follows legal guidelines.
Well, that certainly makes sense, Crystal. What's the biggest issue you're dealing with right now?
Probably COVID. Funding for our courts has statewide. We've been impacted significantly. The revenue stream for our operations of the courts for clerks statewide is volatile in that it isn't a constant. Mm-hmm. We have to earn it to use it. Collier is very fortunate that we are a donor county. In other words, we make and generate more revenue than we are budgeted or allocated by the state. But when those revenues go down because of COVID, no citations, court processes were stopped for a while. Those budgetary constraints will impact us.
Yeah.
And moving into 2021, we're looking at about a $700,000 cut at the state level that we're obviously hoping doesn't come to reality, but right now those are the projections.
Yeah. Interesting. Crystal, in some way, can I infer from what you're saying that some of the judicial activity of the circuit court is slowing down, we're not moving forward with things that should be adjudicated?
Well, correct. Right now, based on the COVID statistics, each county, particularly statewide, but particularly for the 20th Judicial, we meet with the judiciary by phone and then regularly and locally in Collier County every week to see the status of COVID and COVID cases. So we are currently processing many, many non-jury types of activities.
Yeah.
But we're doing them remotely with people in different rooms on Zoom, and we had to shift our entire processes to accommodate that. Because of the level of COVID positivity in Collier, we're not yet to jury trials and some of those other processes, so those are backlogging.
Wow.
Most recently, we were able to get back and do quite a bit of the backlogged foreclosure and tax deed sale proceedings that we normally hold. That's another role of the Clerk of Courts.
Yeah. Crystal, I just genuinely appreciate that. By the way, congratulations on your election too. That was just recent. So again,
Yes.
reelected Crystal Kinzel, again, Clerk of Court of the Circuit Court and Controller. Genuinely appreciate you coming on the show. They're very interesting and informative. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bob, and I hope to have the opportunity as we progress through the next 4 years. I want to keep the citizens informed.
All right, thank you so much, Crystal.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, we're going to visit with Jim McTagg. Jim is former Barron's Washington Bureau Chief. He retired a couple years ago. He's written a couple of books, murder mysteries in Washington, D.C. They are terrific. One is Follow the Leader. The second is Shake the Money Tree. It's a sequel. We're going to talk to Jim. That and more right here on The Bob Harden Show on the Bob Harden Broadcasting Network.